Welcome to the Worshipped Woman podcast. I am your host, kellykristin. I am a life and relationship coach, deep healing facilitator, and subconscious change expert. On this podcast, we will dive deep into personal growth, transformation, and relationships, releasing patterns of toxicity, codependency, and people-pleasing as we explore what it means to be the worshipped woman. If you are ready to heal, embody your worth, and raise your standards in life and love, you are in the right place. I am so happy to have you here. Now, let's get started. Hello, sisters. Welcome back to the Worshipped Woman podcast. I am so grateful that you are here. I'm so grateful that you decided to press play on this. And I just have to tell you this because it's just funny how life goes sometimes. I was recording this podcast for you and I got, probably 75% of the way through what I was going to say. I mean, I was really on a roll of what I was talking about. And I look over at my setup and I realized that the whole time my microphone, I forgot to press the little button that says on. So, just talking to myself, but that's okay. Let's hope that this second time we go through this is a charm. But I also want to let you know that, hey, shit happens and you just got to keep on going, keep on rolling, right? I mean, really, I'm going to go on a little tangent here because I want to talk about this because I used to be the type of person that would get mad, right? Like if things, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I just wasted all this time. I just did all this stuff and let myself get mad over that. And now I can just be like, oh, that's kind of funny. And now I have to do it again and it's not a big deal. But the reason it's not a big deal anymore is because I have learned how to chill out my nervous system. And this is important because when you have a really dysregulated nervous system and you're constantly living in survival mode, you're constantly stressed, then a little thing that goes wrong can set you off and make you upset. And it's like you have these reactions that are disproportionate to the situation at hand. Anytime you're having reactions that are really disproportionate to the situation at hand, then that really is a clear indication that you're having some dysregulation in your nervous system. You know, I used to be a person when I would drive, I would get like road ragey. I'd be so mad, like somebody would cut me off. I'd be like, But that's because I was so stressed out. My nervous system was stressed out. My body was so just on high alert all of the time that any little thing made me feel like, that survival, like what's going on in my high alert sort of thing. But when you really learn how to be calm, be at peace, you don't let those things bother you as much because you understand your body. And you understand that it really isn't a big deal. And so that's a mindset thing and a body thing. And for me, it started with mindset. I didn't have to do the body work first. I had to understand the mindset first. The mindset of, wait a second, I'm acting this way and it's a repetitive action that I've taken, but do I have to act that way? Now, I can remember like growing up in my household, like that's how everybody in my household acted, right? Like everything was a big deal. Like if you broke a dish or something, it was like, oh my gosh, we gotta clean it up now. We gotta do all these things. I mean, just like that was how my house was, right? Where it's like I break a dish, I'm like, oh damn, I gotta clean that up now. And I'm just very calm with it, very relaxed with it because I've made the decision to be that way. But I had to observe myself first. And there's so much magic in observing yourself and observing your actions and then going, oh, do I really want to act like this? Do I really want to be this way? And so I started noticing, like when I was driving and I would feel myself starting to get that tension and being like, really take a deep breath and be like, is it really that big of a deal? Is it really that big of a deal? And the answer is no. Like, is this really affecting my life? Like, no. And actually me getting mad about it is poorly affecting me, not them, not the other person, right? Like they don't know that I'm mad. Like they don't really care. So here I am allowing myself to suffer and continuing my own suffering through my actions and then somehow justifying it. When the reality was I could take a pause, I could take a breath, and I could choose a new way. And that's really what changes everything. Observation, pausing, breathing, choosing a new way. Wow, if we all just did that in our lives, how much would change? And that really does kind of segue me into what I want to talk about today, because we're going to have a conversation about self-worth. And if you've been hanging out with me for a while, you know that I talk about self-worth quite a bit. Self-worth to me is the backbone of living an incredible life. It is the antidote to toxic relationships. When you have high self-worth, you value yourself highly. You're certainly not going to be or want to be in relationships with people who don't value you, who don't treat you well, because you know that's what you deserve, right? So it's a really, really important thing. We've talked about it a lot before. Maybe you've been in the Worthy Woman workshop, or you've heard me talk about it. And that is just a mini workshop that's really about reprogramming your mind for self-worth. And if you have taken that, you know that in lesson 3 of that workshop, I talk about really embodying the identity of a worthy woman and what that could be like. And that's where the work is, right? That's where the work is making the choices to act from a position of self-worth, even when you don't necessarily feel worthy already. And this is the mistake that a lot of people make in life in general, right? Like, we wait to act a certain way when we feel a certain way. And that's sort of backwards, right? When the reality was, if you can come from a place of, I know I'm already worthy, even though I don't necessarily feel worthy, but I know I'm already worthy, because that's the truth. That's just an absolute ultimate truth. Well, then how would I act if I was already worthy? And that's really what I want to talk about today. And this is going to be one of those things where if you just listen to this and it feels good, and you kind of let it just go in, but you never actually apply it to your life, it's not really going to do that much for you. Information can only take us so far, right? I mean, the truth is if information alone was going to change your life, everybody would not have any issues. There would be no problems, because it's so easy to get information. But what I'm after is transformation. And to get transformation, you actually have to take the information, apply it to your life, and then embody it. That's really what it's about. So if you're just going to listen to this podcast and just kind of let it in and out and go, okay, that's cool, that's fine. Maybe you're going to hear something that shifts a perspective, and that's important. But if you want to get the most out of it, I want you to reflect on yourself. I want you to pause, breathe, and in the moments that I'm talking about, and this will make more sense at the end, realize that you can choose a new way in the moment. And that's where the shift happens. That's where the change happens. And I promise you, if you start applying these things to your life before you feel ready, before you feel like you know what you're doing, before you feel worthy, then guess what? You're going to be worthy. It's a choice. So much of these things are a choice. It doesn't matter what you've been through. It doesn't matter what happened to you. It doesn't matter how terrible your relationships have been. You can still live an incredible life. You can still have high self-worth. You can still say, no matter what, I know I've been through all this, but I know at the depth of my being, I am worthy and I deserve to live an incredible life. I deserve to be loved how I want to be loved. I deserve to be cared for. I deserve to be nourished. I deserve whatever it is that you want. If you can start telling that story, that's going to have a massive impact on your life. So I want to zoom out for a second here and kind of give you context of what I want to talk about today, because I realize I'm a bit all over the place, so we're just going to roll with it. But I really want you to realize that loving someone more is not going to make them love you. And trying to prove your worth to somebody, to get them to love you or to want to be with you or to treat you right, is a really, really backwards plan, because it's not going to work. And this is a hallmark that happens so much within the toxic relationship dynamic, where you have this partner that might not really be very interested in you, right? Like say it's an avoidant partner who doesn't really seem like that interested in you, doesn't really make the effort that you want them to make, doesn't show up for you, right? Doesn't show up for you emotionally, doesn't show up for you as a relationship that you would actually want, right? They don't do that. They don't do that. And so instead of you taking that as, oh, we're just not really a match, right? Like that just actually doesn't work for me. That's not what I want. We're not a match. Instead of doing that, you decide, well, wait 1 second here. I'm going to prove to them how amazing I am. I am going to love them so much. I am going to do everything for them. I'm going to go above and beyond. And you know what? When I do that, well, they're going to have no choice but to love me, but to choose me, but to think that I am amazing, right? Now, if any of you out there have done that, myself included, like let's not forget, like I was once this woman, okay? This is why I get these things so deeply, because I was once this way. But if you've been in that position, maybe you currently are, you know that just doesn't fucking work. It does not work. And what ends up happening is that you start getting resentful, right? Like I'm doing so much for this person and then they don't even treat me this way. And I don't understand. I don't get this. Or you keep trying harder and harder and harder, thinking that one day they're going to wake up and they're going to see, right? They're going to wake up one day and see how amazing you are and decide that they can't live without you and that they've been so wrong. And now what I want you to understand is that right there is an indication of childhood stuff, okay? Your inner little child is like, if I can get this person who doesn't, who's showing me that they don't really want to be with me, but if I can get them to change their mind and I can prove to them how worthy I am, well, then I will be worthy. And this comes from an old childhood wound that says, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not deserving, whatever it is, right? That's where that comes from. It doesn't come from like adult you, right? Who might even logically be thinking, of course I'm worthy, right? You might even have those logical thoughts. But if you're acting in these ways, then, we pretty much guarantee that you've got some subconscious beliefs that say otherwise. Because how we act is pretty much our subconscious beliefs, right? Because that's what's actually running our life is our subconscious. Very little of what we do and how we act is in our conscious awareness, all right? I mean, some people tell you it's 1% to 5% of conscious awareness. So that would leave 95 to 99% of your subconscious running the show. So when you're acting in ways that don't really make that much sense to you or don't feel good, right? Then there's something going on in your subconscious, which is why I do so much subconscious change work, so much hypnotherapy, like all of these things that really get in there so we can release some of this stuff, this junk that's in the way. Now, so you're in this position where you're trying to prove your worth in your relationships. And this can show up in so many ways, right? This can show up in so many different ways. It can show up with like you doing things that you really don't want to do. It can show up with, you forgiving your partner for things that are horrible, things that they've said to you, things that they've done to you. Maybe, they cheated on you, things that you said you would never allow, or, they lie, they do this, and you just forgive and forget and try to be like this perfect little partner or something, thinking that that is going to make them love you, right? That is lack of self-worth. That is lack of self-value. That is you looking for validation from this other person that you are worthy. And the interesting thing that happens is that when we try to do this, we so don't value ourselves. So then this other people actually can't really value us because we don't value ourselves. You understand? If you're in a relationship with somebody and they are treating you badly, and then you are over there trying to be better and trying to do better and try to love them more and think that if you just show up as this perfect person, they're gonna, change for you or love you more. They're actually looking at what you're doing and how you're acting and valuing you less and less. Now, they also don't value themselves, right? So there's multiple layers to this. But if you don't value yourself and you don't treat yourself with respect, how are you going to be able to expect other people to treat you with respect? How are you going to expect that other people are going to value you? It really, really starts with you. It really starts with you. But I want you to understand that you can start valuing yourself today. You can start putting a value on yourself today. And what does that really look like? Well, it looks like pausing, breathing, and choosing a new way. So there's a couple of questions that I like to ask when I feel like maybe, and there's levels to this, right? There's levels to this. It's not like one day you're going to be like, I have perfect self-worth and I value myself 100% of the time and I broke all of these patterns like one day to the next. That doesn't happen, okay? It's a practice. It's an evolution. It's choosing. It's constantly choosing, and it's constantly showing up for yourself the way that you want to, right? That's a choice. You have to make that choice every day. So one thing that I like to do, if I'm starting to feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm losing myself a little bit, or maybe I'm, saying yes when I really wanted to say no, or doing things that go against how I want to be, how I want to value myself, I ask myself, if I 100% knew my worth in this moment, would I be doing what I'm doing? If I 100% knew I was worthy already, would I be doing what I'm doing? And I allow myself to pause and reflect on that and answer accordingly. Another question I ask is, if I didn't need anything from anyone else and I knew I was complete on my own, would I be doing what I'm doing? If I didn't need anyone's validation, if I didn't need anything from anybody else and I knew I was complete already, would I be doing what I'm doing? Now, this is not to say that you don't ever do something for somebody, right? It's not to say that you don't do nice things for people or something like that, okay? And that's like usually the pushback I get when I say things like this, like, oh, well, like you're just going to live your life alone and like nobody's, you can't not do things for people. I don't know. It's a weird pushback I get because you don't understand this concept that when you do things from a place of love because you really want to do them, it is so different than doing things to get something or doing things because you think that this other person is then going to validate your worth. Do you understand that distinction? Because if I didn't have to worry about that, if I didn't have to worry about my worth because I already have it, I already have my self-worth, I already feel worthy, I already value myself, I already think that I'm amazing, this is all truth. If that's the case, and then I show up from a place of total worth, I show up from a place of total value, and I say, is this what I want to be doing? Is this how I want to act? That's powerful right there. But it's in those moments, in the actual moment, that you have to pause and ask yourself these questions. And this is what I mean by like, you can get this information and go, okay, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that sounds good. And never do anything with it and never see any changes in your life. Or you can notice the patterns for yourself, because it's not just in relationships that low self-worth shows up, right? It's not just in relationships. It's patterns. It's patterns of people pleasing where you sacrifice yourself. It's patterns of codependency, really, right? Like people pleasing really is just codependency. Like they're very interchangeable words, because at the root of codependency, it's just you sacrificing your needs for others, you putting somebody else's needs as more important than your own. Nobody else's needs are more important than your own. They might be equal, right? Like let's say you are in a partnership and it's a healthy partnership and your needs might be equal to each other's importance, but they're not, that other person's needs are not more important than your own, right? And so it's not about never doing anything nice for people or never doing an action for people. That's not what it is, but it's actually more manipulative, right? To do things out of, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, but if I do it, that they might think that I'm worthy, so I have to. That's actually a manipulation, really. And I know that's hard to hear because most people don't even see it from that way because you don't think that you're being manipulative. But it is, because you're showing up with an energy of, I need to get something from you. I need to get something from you. And that's a perpetual problem that a lot of us find ourselves in. And the only way to get over this problem is to stop, reflect, and start valuing yourself. Start believing that you're worthy. Start believing that you're deserving. You just tell yourself this. I want you to understand the power that you have to shift the narrative in your life, to shift the story that you keep telling yourself over and over and over again. Because what you are looking for, you are going to find. Our subconscious has this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like when we don't believe that we are worthy, we continue to seek out relationships and seek out situations in our life that prove to us that we are not worthy so the subconscious can be right. But you can rewrite that narrative, and you might have to keep writing it over and over and over and over and over again. But that's fine because it's worth it. It's worth it to go, you know what? I deserve better than this, and I'm going to wait for it. Self-worth is what allows us to have very high standards, right? Very high standards for what we're willing to accept in partnerships, in our relationships. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having high standards. It doesn't mean that you're better than anybody else. It doesn't mean anything about that. It means that you have a certain standard that you hold yourself to, and you hold other people to that. Not like they can't be in your life, but certainly that they can't get into a romantic relationship with you, because that is a privilege. It is a privilege to be in a relationship with you. It's a privilege to be able to be in your space. It's a privilege to be able to be in your energy, to be able to have like an emotional relationship with you. That is a privilege. Are you showing up in your life knowing that's a privilege? Are you showing up in your life valuing yourself enough to truly believe that? That's a choice that you can make right here and right now. And maybe you got to tell yourself that a lot. Maybe in the moments where you start to feel yourself sacrificing yourself a little bit, you got to remind yourself, no, I don't do this anymore. I don't act this way anymore. I get to make the new choice now. And I get to make it over and over and over again until, you know what, it just becomes me, and that's who I am. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. I know you can. So that's going to be it for me today. If you loved this episode, please do me a favor. Rate and review this on Apple Podcasts. It helps me to get this out to more and more people who might need to hear it. If you know somebody who you think could benefit from listening to this, could benefit from actually pausing, breathing, and choosing a new way, please share it with them, send it to them. That means so much to me. And of course, you can always take a screenshot, tag me on IG stories, let me know that you're listening. You can find my Instagram. It is Miss MS Kellykristin. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you soon.